you. Are we unmuted in here?
Really?
What?
Yes, you're unmuted. We can hear you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Allegiance to America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We're actually going to start the meeting tonight with a bit of unfortunate news. Our district lost one of our own last week, a student who had been ill. Rose Calixte unfortunately passed away, so we want to just take a moment to have a moment of silence for her passing and her remembrance, please. Thank you, everyone. Please keep her family in your thoughts. Welcome, everyone, to the meeting. Appreciate your being here. I hope everyone did enjoy their long President's Day weekend, had a good Valentine's Day. Today's Fat Tuesday. We had some King's cake before I came over. So thank you for everyone for being here tonight. I do want to ask, as part of the President's report, I'm going to ask Ms. Beal if she wants to give an update. She attended the Monmouth Ocean County School Board's meeting late last week, I'm sorry. If she can give an update on that meeting, please. Ms. Beal?
Yes, so I attended as well as Ms. Hayes and Ms. Tallarico. The President, Al Miller, gave greetings, and he also mentioned the call for officers for the Monmouth County School Boards Association. So for those of us who love to serve, here's another opportunity to continue serving. One of the highlights was from the New Jersey School Boards Association's Eye on the Future as Districts Monitor Student Mental Health Report. It's an extensive report. It does highlight information from other districts, and the purpose of it is not to reinvent the wheel. Based upon 264 Board of Education members, superintendents, and business administrators, I just wanted to highlight 4 statistics from the report. 47% approximately said that they do not see evidence of more students in crisis, but students do appear more anxious and depressed. Approximately 32% in general said students are coping well. They haven't seen an increase in evidence of serious crises. 12% have seen evidence of more serious crises, such as incidents of self-harm, threats of self-harm, or hospitalizations. And 7.5% selected other, and it wasn't clear about what that other was. But one of the common themes mentioned throughout the meeting was about the importance of checking in on the students, even during the summer, to continue to check in on them. So I am just trying to relay that information because I do believe that it is something that's important. And it's difficult to say the percentage-wise, what region, whether it was northern, central, or southern, because it doesn't break it down by the region. It just looks at the statistics overall for the state. And the New Jersey School Boards Association did have a sample resolution. There were a couple of districts that included in the chat that they had submitted a resolution for teachers to be priorities for vaccinations. Happy to say Ocean has already had their resolution approved. And just a few government relation updates. There's approximately 5 mental health bills going forward with the state, as well as Laura Wooten's law, and obviously concern about assessments even being held at all this year, even though they're currently being pushed back. For my colleagues, I'm sure you're aware, but for myself, someone that's new, superintendent evaluation tool and process was the keynote, and that was presented by Ms. Mary Ann Friedman, a field representative. And she just highlighted tools and processes regarding the evaluation, and that it's typically, well, it is based upon statute and has to be in writing at least once a year, and it's based upon goals and objectives of the district, responsibilities, and other criteria presented or prescribed by the Board of Education. she was actually kind of cute in her wit, where she mentioned, if the superintendent is instrumental in getting a student into Harvard, that's wonderful, but that may not be the entire basis for the evaluation.
Oh,
Personally, I disagree, but I'll take her expertise on this
because we got a
one.
kid.
And she mentioned the same thing. If he's not instrumental in getting a student into Harvard, please don't hold it against him or her either. So the next meeting will be strictly Monmouth County School Boards Association. That's March 2nd. And the keynote will focus on budgeting during a pandemic. And unfortunately, I will not be able to attend. I'll be here. So
Our meeting.
hopefully they'll post minutes, or I'll try to reach out to a fellow colleague for notes.
Yeah.
So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Beal, for that update. And for fellow board members, Ms. Beal's update is actually included as an attachment as well under the president's report. So thank you very much for that and for attending the meeting as well and for your time. Next, we will go to our student representatives. So happy to have them here tonight, and so happy that later we'll be recognizing some students as well. It's great to have that back. Ms. Conway, can you unmute, please, Gio and Taylor?
Gio, I just unmuted you. And
Should I-
Taylor, you're also unmuted.
All right,
All right.
Gia, I'll go first.
All right.
This month, TSA is doing a candle making activity using the CNC router and 3D printing. Key Club has been volunteering to shovel snow during the snowstorms for the elderly. Spartan Schools held additional Q&As for freshmen, and the math team had a virtual math meet this month.
Thank you, Taylor. Gio? Gio, are you still with us?
He's muted.
Looks like he's having
Oh, there he is.
There we go. Go ahead, Gio.
He's muted again.
Technical difficulties, everyone. Apologies.
All right. Sorry.
There we go. No problem.
The swim team has a meet tomorrow with Freehold Borough. The boys ice hockey team lost a tough game to Toms River East 3-4. The boys basketball team beat Long Branch 42-36. The girls basketball team beat Barnegat 38-22. And the winter track team has started practicing.
Thank you, Gio. Thank you, Taylor, for those updates. It's so great to hear about all the things that are going on in the schools. We're really excited to be able to celebrate them. And thank you to the students who went out and helped shovel. It was great to see that, for everyone to be so helpful. It was really nice to see.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in, and I apologize, Gio and Taylor, but I saw something on Twitter earlier today about student council honoring our nurses with some gift baskets.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that? Maybe?
He's shaking his head, yes.
He's shaking his head, yes. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just saw that. If there's any, I mean, everybody deserves a basket, but our nurses really deserve baskets. So I just think it's a great thing that for student council to have done. So if you could just shed a little bit of light on that.
So we had everyone in our student council to just send out a little picture that said, like, please donate like this much. And there was a bunch of hearts with like different various amount of money on it. And then we used, like, if kids slid up and sent, which we had a lot of people sending in money for the nurses, we used that money to get them special gifts. And yeah, they definitely do deserve a lot during this, because they are coming in contact with a lot of people with COVID, and it's their job. They're very protective of us. So yeah.
That's great.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I saw that on Twitter today. I thought that was a great initiative, and our nurses do a tremendous job. So it was great of student council at the high school to recognize all of the nurses, not just the high school nurse, Nan Priest, but all of our nurses, which is great. They all are very deserving. So good job,
Thank you
student
for
council.
doing that. And thank you both for the updates. We'll turn now to Dr. Stefankowitz, who I know has many things he'd like to update us on.
Absolutely, many things, absolutely. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to honor some students. And we, unfortunately, because just not as many events take place now in pandemic land, as once did. We don't do this as often, but hopefully over the next couple months, we'll be able to do this every month. We just found out about, I think, all shore band, so I think next month we'll have some more students as well. But this month, we have some students for our annual district spelling bee, which is always a lot of fun. This year held virtually for fourth grade. And then, of course, there was a middle school third, second, and first place champions. Let me first acknowledge the two supervisors who helped to coordinate and run this event. At the elementary level, K-5, that's Michelle Shapiro, who is our English language arts supervisor at the elementary level, and Ian Schwartz, who's our supervisor of humanities for grades 6 through 12. So Michelle and Ian, thank you very much. We appreciate all of your efforts here. And to all the kids that, we're going to announce the kids who won, and, those who placed. But, there's dozens of kids who, who tried out and took a risk and put themselves out there and, got up in front of a lot of people and spelled a lot of words that I've never heard of. And they did a great job in doing it. So congratulations to all the kids and all the participants. But for tonight, we will honor those who, the fourth grade winners, and then those who placed third, second, and first at the intermediate school. So at the elementary level, the fourth grade spelling bees were held virtually, as I mentioned, at each school during January. And each fourth grade at each school crowned a grade level champion for fourth grade. So we're going to start with those students first. And I don't know if they'll pop up on the screen if they say hello. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but we would like you to say hello if you can, and acknowledge your wonderful accomplishment. So for OTES, in Mr. Wayne's class, we have Landon Clark. Landon, congratulations to Landon. I don't know, Landon, if we'll see you, but here's a certificate for you. And it's signed and you'll get it, but here it is, okay? I'm giving it to you, Landon, okay? So so you have that. So congratulations to Landon. For Wanamasa and Mrs. Morris's class, we have Parker Lushine. Parker, I saw Parker in there a little bit. Here's Parker, here's your certificate, Parker, as well. Congratulations, Parker. And can't believe you're in fourth grade already. It just seems like yesterday. And from Wayside, the Wayside champion in Mrs. Milling's class, it's Matthew Zhu. Matthew, I see Matthew, there he is. Hello, Matthew. Here's your certificate as well. So you will, awesome job. Can you spell certificate? That's just a joke, I'm not serious. Okay, but you will get these certificates, don't worry, they will come to you over to the school, okay? So congratulations to our fourth grade winners. Next up is our third, second, and first place recipients from the intermediate school. So those competitions were held on that competition was held on January 20th. And we had three winners. Unfortunately, our first place winner couldn't be with us tonight, but we're going to acknowledge her just the same. So the third place winner and from Ms. Tedder's class is Andres Ballesteros. Andres, congratulations. Not sure if you're with us.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, great job. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. Here's your certificate. Congratulations. Okay. Next up is also in seventh grade, also in Ms. Tedder's class. A lot of good things going on there, a lot of spelling, good spelling going on in Ms. Tedder's class over there. But we have Arav Apade, and I hope I said your name correctly, Arav. Congratulations. I said no? Well, I truly apologize. Can you tell us how it's pronounced correctly, please?
Dr. Stefankiewicz, how do you spell the first name?
It's Aarav is how you spell. See, I can spell it correctly.
Here we go. He's unmuted.
Oh, now he's muted.
All right, you're unmuted.
It's Upadhyay.
Upadhyay. I am so sorry. Please forgive me. Please feel free to completely mispronounce my last name. Did I get the first name correct? Is Arav correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna call you Arav so I don't mess it up anymore. Congratulations, Arav. Your certificate is coming to you, and excellent job for second place finish. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And our winner of the competition here, like I said, unfortunately couldn't be here this evening, but we want to send out our congratulations to Grace Voorhees as an 8th grader from Ms. Butler's class. She was our first place champion of the spelling bee, so that was outstanding, and congratulations to Grace. And Grace and the 3 elementary winners, Landon, Parker, and Matthew, will go on to a next round. That will be an online test, and that will occur in mid-March. So congratulations, and we'll keep you updated on how these students do in the next round of the spelling bee this year. So great job, everyone. Congratulations. All right, next up, we have several outstanding writers. And every year, our language arts teachers do an outstanding job of submitting student work to the Asbury Park Press for their student essay and video contests. And I'm glad that, I mean, obviously we would always love for our students to submit entries in any way, but I love that we still submit entries in the essay contest, because as you all know, students need to write, and they need to be able to write well and express themselves well in writing. And so we have 2 students who this week in this particular contest came in 2nd and 1st place in the intermediate school division, which is outstanding. So the students, the essay topic was what I learned about myself during the pandemic. And Miss Melinda Willems is their teacher. So congratulations to Miss Willems, and which was excellent. Great job. And when I read these, I have to say, I read them very enthusiastically, because I'm still waiting to figure out what I've learned about myself during the pandemic. So I was hoping to take as many ideas as I possibly could. So I did learn quite a bit, and I have to say that the level of insight that these students provided about their own, their self-reflections about what they are experiencing was very inspiring. So I congratulate them, not just for placing and winning, but just being involved in the process, which is outstanding. So 2nd place winner was Guadalupe Matarozas, excuse me. Guadalupe Monterosas. Guadalupe, I hope you're with us. Congratulations. I think you are. I think I saw your name pop up there. And we have a certificate for you, Guadalupe. And the 1st place winner for this competition or this contest was Joan Abolo Polish. Joan, congratulations, Joan. Great job. All righty. And once again, certificates coming to both of you, to all of you. Outstanding. I long for the day when we can do this in person, when you can get in front of the big tarp over here and we can take your pictures and do all that kind of fun stuff. So congratulations, kids. We really appreciate your hard work and everything you're doing. And thanks to our teachers who inspire these kids and our supervisors who help make all this happen. So thanks so much.
Congratulations.
All righty. You know, I know Ms. Tedder and Ms. Butler and Ms. Willems give lots of homework. So if the kids, you know, you're very welcome to stick around, kids. But if you have a lot of homework and you need to log off, you can. So that's okay, no problem. But you're very welcome to stay. Okay. So what else is going on? Not much. So we are preparing. We are preparing for the next phase that continues of our reopening plan. The questionnaire that went out to our parents garnered about 1,550 responses out of about 2,000. So we are in the process now of reaching out to those individuals who did not respond to see what their intention is moving forward. What we can say is, based on the responses that we received, this is for both schools, about 78% of the students said that they plan to return 4 days a week. Now, we don't anticipate that that will be the final number because we suspect that many of the students that did not respond are perhaps those students who are all remote. So we think that that number will go down and will be closer to around 60% at the high school level when it's all said and done, and about 75% at the middle school level when that is all said and done, which will 75% kind of mirrors where we are right now with all remote students at the middle school. And 60% is probably what the official all remote number is at the high school, but in reality, it's been closer to about 50 to perhaps on some days even 60% of the students, being remote at the high school level. So I think that we're excited to have the kids want to come back. We are, we're on track for our March 1st for 6, 9, and 12. We're keeping an eye on, obviously, the health conditions out there. All of the major data points that we look at are moving in the positive direction. The 7-day case average is down over a month ago. That's in New Jersey, and in Monmouth County. The hospitalization numbers are at its lowest point since early November. There's a lot of good statistics happening in, of course, until it's zero, it's not good, right? But vaccination numbers are going up, and the good data is going up, and the negative data is starting to come down. So we're far from out of the woods. We're far from in a great place, but we're moving in the right direction, and we anticipate those directions to continue. And as a result, we are maintaining our current timeline for March 1st and March 15th. It is absolutely, I think, a great goal to try to return our students who wish to come 4 days a week by the 1-year anniversary of us going out, and hopefully to 5 days a week shortly thereafter. Hopefully, after spring break is our goal. So we're on track. That being said, we keep an eye on things. We keep an eye on what's going on, and we talk every day with our health, with the health professionals, and we keep the procedures in place that we need to have in place, and we feel confident that we can keep both our students and staff as safe as possible, and that's been what we've been doing since September, and I think we can continue that. Very much so as we head toward the end of the school year. Vaccination report. So we did ask our staff, remember last week we were discussing about high-risk names being submitted to the county for those folks who were staff members being vaccinated, those are folks, once again, high risk. So they would be 1A people they're 1As within the 1Bs, right? So they're going to try to get those 1As within the 1Bs, because 1Bs who are educators haven't officially been given the go-ahead yet. But high-risk people who are within that group, who are 1A, can. So we did submit 100 names to the county, so they'll now reach out. We also were able to make a contact with a local health group who wishes right now to remain anonymous so as not to get a rush of phone calls. But they have agreed to also start to help us with vaccinations, and we're hopeful that will begin by either the end of this week or early next week. It's going to be slow to start because supply is still somewhat limited, but they're hopeful somewhere around between 25 and 50 people per week to get their first shots, in addition to what hopefully the county is going to be providing. So we're excited about that, and I'll hopefully have more on that by the next meeting. But that being said, we do know because when we put out of people who wishes to be vaccinated, we do know that a lot of our high-risk staff members have started this process on their own and are in the process of being vaccinated either on their first or second shots. So that's exciting. So we're very thankful and we're excited for them because obviously for a lot of these folks, it's there's a lot of anxiety to interacting with a lot of people and being out, and we've been very mindful of that through the entire year, and for them to hopefully get a little peace of mind with vaccination is something that's very important to them and us as a district. So we're excited for them. Couple other things just to mention. We did have, I was in a meeting this morning where we actually talked about education. So that was exciting. I know that sounds crazy, but anymore, fewer and fewer of at least my meetings pertain to education. But we had Professional Development Day on Friday, and by many accounts, we had a really outstanding day with a lot of great discussion about students and where they are and how we can work better and more efficiently, not harder necessarily, just more efficiently to address their individual needs. A lot of great discussions going on. And it was done mostly virtual. And that was very, that was really very positive. So I think we only had 7 pet bombs from people whose pets jumped on board during the meetings. There's no definitive, this is a thing for me. But no, it was a good day all the way around overall, and hopefully a lot of positive will come from it. It's always a little bit sad though, because those days are not just days of good professional learning, but it's great collegiality to get together and be able to see each other, and and this year, most of it was virtual, but I think a good day nonetheless. Ms. Beal brought up earlier about assessment, so I was going to mention that. We have been planning for state assessments, but in a broadcast that came out from the county, or from the state actually, last week, the state assessments have been put on hold for now. Many of you may perhaps have heard this already. There's no state assessments prior to April 5th. So that's for many spring breaks end at that point. So no district can give, it's my understanding that, well, I don't know if it's certain, but there's speculation that the state is using this time as time to perhaps apply for a federal waiver so as not to have to give testing at all this year. I don't know if that's completely accurate or not, but that's something I've heard. There is certainly a lot of pressure to on the governor's office and the Department of Education to do just that, to suspend, testing for the year, as obviously we are in an extremely unusual learning environment. And, we think about the validity that would come out of such tests, being that many students would be taking the tests at home, right? As all remote students would also have to take the test. So there's a lot of question marks, and most educators, many educators, I should say, feel that just postponing testing, overall would be the wise thing for the Department of Education to do. We do a lot of internal benchmark assessment to see where our kids are, and that is a lot of what drove our professional development on Friday. So that we find very valuable, because it's giving us real-time information about how our kids are doing right here and now. We don't necessarily think that a state assessment right now is going to give us any more data than we already have, and it's going to take valuable time away from already what is a difficult instructional model in how, in kids being in and out and hybrid and not, and so on. So we're very hopeful that we won't be seeing state assessments this year, but whatever it will be. And but we know we're not giving them before spring break. So that being said, we did have a lot of things scheduled a little bit before spring break, so we will have to adjust that calendar. Typically, we don't like to give assessments in the schools at the same time. But because of this, if we wind up having assessments, we will be testing multiple schools at the same time. And we don't usually like it because we usually put all our tech folks in one building in case there's problems. This way, we'll have to spread that out. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention, and I'm going to defer to Mrs. Zona if she's here, to just discuss very quickly a 5K walk that for adults with autism that she is organizing. And I thought it was awesome that we're heavily involved in this, and we've been promoting this on social media. And Jen, if you're there, I wanted to, if you could just take a minute to just talk a little bit about this effort.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Stefankiewicz. Good evening, everyone. Some of you know that I am a board member of the Monmouth Ocean Foundation for Children. And the last few years, we have dedicated our fundraising efforts to open a 21 and older educational program for adults with autism. The program will be called the Achieve Academy for Adults with Autism, and it will be located at the Brookdale Wall campus. And just some background, really, I know we do have a board member that is actually very familiar with, thank you, Natalie, for all the work you do with our adults. But we've all heard of the term autism epidemic, and what people don't really stop to think about is that that term was really phrased about 20, 25 years ago. So that cohort of individuals are now rapidly approaching adulthood or are adults. And as a society, we've put all our attention and funding into early intervention and school aid services, not really stopping to think about what would happen when they grow up. So not to be dramatic, but there is a critical shortage of services for adults with autism. And we have decided that we would be opening this program, hopefully within the next 15 to 18 months. And our goal is to create a program that targets individuals' needs and provides training to help our clients with self-help skills, community activities, independent living skills, vocational supportive employment, and advocacy, to name just a few areas. So it is a 5K run, 2-mile walk, and hope to see you there.
And when is that, Jen?
Sunday, April 18th at 10 a.m. in Brielle, at the Brielle Park.
Great. And I think it would be great, and you and I have discussed, getting this out to our National Honor Society advisors and have this get pushed out to all of our student organizations that, they can hopefully get involved. A lot of kids are in need of volunteer hours and just want to help and maybe raise some money. Hopefully by April 18th, we can get outside and walk in a mass distanced way and help that cause. So congratulations to the organization, and it's a great cause, and for your involvement in the organization of that. So good stuff.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Is there a way that we can, I know in years past, sometimes we've, out to championships and stuff, we've gotten a bus together, but if we have students that would like to take part in this, is there a possibility of maybe getting a bus together to get them there if they need be?
Yeah, I'm sure we can have that. I'm sure we can have that discussion. Sure. Sure. Yes, multiple buses, many buses. Absolutely. I think we can, we could try to do something like that. Sure. So if there's any questions on any of the items I brought up.
Just one quick thing, and Ms. Gilman, you mentioned when you were talking about the survey results and where you think things will land, you made a reference to, you think we'll land at a certain spot of high school where it's about where we are now, but there's kind of this unofficial people who are not declared virtual students, but who are regularly not coming to school.
Right.
How's that going to be handled going forward? Because I know that's been an issue with teachers for predictability.
Yeah.
How do we think that
we're currently talking about that, because that is an issue. We definitely have some folks who are not telling us they're remote, but are just kind of feeling their way through. And sometimes they come and sometimes they don't, or sometimes they don't come for like a month. And, I think it just creates a difficult situation for teachers because they don't know what to expect on a daily basis. So we're talking about that. And some of the conversation that we've had is basically that if a student doesn't come we're thinking of about a 2-week period of time, that there's no reason why they shouldn't have come. I mean, obviously, if they're sick or if they have to quarantine or something like that, that wouldn't apply. But if there's no reason why a student wouldn't have come, then we're basically thinking at that point that we would make them a remote student, and then they would have to, they'd have to wait till the next marking period if they wanted to come. We're going to talk about that at task force. As a matter of fact, that's going to be on our agenda this coming week. But administratively, we've had that conversation, and we think that that's a fair thing to do for the staff. And obviously, if a student's not coming on a regular basis, then you kind of have to make it's not great to play both sides. Like you kind of make a choice here. So that's what we'd like to try to do.
Okay.
Jim, that's all grade levels, right?
Yes, we'd be looking at that across the board, yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman?
Well, that was kind of my question too, that you asked Mrs. Fuller, as far as how do we know how many students in the high school are really coming back, not only for planning, but for looking at the CDC guidelines. The two things that they really emphasize are ventilation and social distancing. We already have the masks in place, and we've been doing that, and our cleaning protocols, but many of the classrooms are not set up for the 6 feet that's required. And in lieu of that, they say, well, open windows or have proper ventilation.
Yeah.
So if we're going to move ahead with some of these guidelines and make sure that students and staff are safe, we need to know who's coming back.
Absolutely. And we will know who tells us they were coming back. I mean, ultimately, until March 1st arrives, we won't know exactly for sure, because, you know, what somebody says today, they may or may not say, you know, they may not do in 2 to 3 weeks. I will say this, I've spoken to a couple of my colleagues who have had their students return. Homedale, Freehold Regional, I think Red Bank Regional may have started today. And so it's still too early to tell there, but at Freehold Regional, I've spoken to some of the folks over there, and they are overwhelmingly, the kids who said they were coming, come. And that may equate to, once again, 50 to 60% of the overall student population. So when we talk about distancing, and yeah, you know, new guidelines from the CDC came out on Friday, which, you know, what we need to do is see how the New Jersey Department of Health interprets that, and then how they put, you know, they don't always follow the guidelines exactly. What I mean by that, sometimes they're even more strict than what the CDC puts out. So we would want to wait and see what they say. But primarily what they talk about as far as 6 feet, which has always been the standard, really speaks to, though, with, forget the exact language, what is it, to the best of your ability. I mean, obviously, they recognize that there's going to be some situations where you're not going to be able to maintain 6 feet in all instances. So, you know, we're aware of that, but, you know, if you have a class of 20 and 60% of the kids come, that's 12 kids. You know, so on average, we think that that's, and we can do 12 kids and pretty much get that 6 feet. It's when we start getting over, remember from the beginning of the year, we were looking at 12 kids, right? So once we get over that, you start to lose some of the 6 feet. That doesn't mean that you've created an unsafe environment. What it really means is that, you know, if there is a person who is, positive in a room, that there may have to be more people who would then have to quarantine as a result of that. But, you know, as we've said, that, you know, we really have seen, and the state has seen, such a small amount of in-school transmissions that, you know, we're very hopeful that the mitigating factors that we've put in place are going to really help that situation. We're also hopeful that as we move forward, that a lot of what we're seeing now is a lot of data that supports shorter quarantine periods if you test negative after a certain amount of days in quarantine. So we may not be able to have to put students or staff members who have to quarantine in a quarantine situation for as long as we have been, the 14 days. That's going to depend on if the numbers keep coming down. And if the numbers keep coming down, I think we'll see that. The latest New Jersey data shows that the whole state is no longer in the high orange range. Two regions actually went to yellow this past week. Not our region, unfortunately, but the western part of the state has moved to yellow, and we're hopeful that the other parts of the state will follow in the coming weeks. So, you know, there's still a lot of unknowns. We know that, but, you know, I think if we're smart, I think if we do the things that we've continued to do, if students and staff, if they continue to be just outstanding with mask wearing and with distancing as much as they possibly can, I think we're gonna be okay, and we're gonna be able to. That doesn't mean we're not gonna have cases. We're gonna have cases. It's being able to minimize the impact of those cases if they occur.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Ms.
Dr. Stefankowitz, the intermediate and high school schedules that were distributed, are those final? And I think 400, based upon the 450 responses, could that change those schedules?
we don't anticipate those changing at this point.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. Stefankiewicz from the board?
I just have one quick thing off of, thank you, off of, back to the spelling bee winners and all those great things. I know we've talked in the past about having board members present, and I know it's virtual now. Is it possible that you or you can have the supervisors give you the link to send to the board members so we can attend these events virtually if we can?
Yeah, I can talk to them about that.
Thank you.
That'd be great.
Just don't spell it. Just see, the problem with the virtual piece is I always usually spell under my breath as they're doing it. And you can't do that when it's virtual because you're, but then again, if they were following what I'm spelling, they would be bad. It would not be good for them.
I promise to stay muted.
Yes, you got to stay muted. Only if you stay muted.
Ms. Hayes, I think you're raising your hand, not clapping, right?
No, I was clapping. I love that
Okay.
idea. I would love to see the spelling events and likewise any other similar events that are virtual that, normally we'd be asked to go to. That's a great idea. I love it, Amy.
Right, thank you.
And
Anything
I did
else?
see Mr. Schwartz give a thumbs up on that.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, is that it, Dr. Stefankiewicz?
I'm sure there'll be something else later in the meeting, but for right now, I think I've completed my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Stefankiewicz. Mr. Jannerone, and just as a reminder, following Mr. Jannerone's report will be the first of our public comment sessions. So you can message the help desk if you'd like to get in the queue. Mr. Jannerone.
Thank you. I wanted to recognize and really thank the maintenance grounds and custodial staff for what seems like about 4 years worth of snow and ice.
Making up for lost
And
time.
With potentially more to come on
Yes,
Thursday.
with more to come. They've really done an excellent job, number one, of course, which they always do, but this is, middle of the Super Bowl. Things have happened where they've really gone above and beyond and done a wonderful job. Also, we have some bus drivers who come in. I want to make sure that the board and the public understand that getting snow off of a roof of a bus with a long rake is not an easy thing, especially when it's iced over. So they've really done a wonderful job with that. So I wanted to mention that. Also, as far as shout outs go, Debbie Andicelli, who works in this building, has been working on the text. I know the board has been a big proponent of this.
Mhm.
And to date, let's see, 1,468, was it?
Yeah, over 1,400 names.
Right. That for our next snow event, nice event, we'll be able to.
Oh, no, we're open on Thursday.
If it comes to that, we'll be able to also text message. So that has gone out. So if anyone's interested in that, or if you haven't seen that, we can get that to you. And so she's done a lot of work on that, which has been excellent also.
That's great.
And that
That's great.
concludes my report.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. One more thing. DPW also has helped us out, and our relationship with the town is great. After the second or third snowfall, it really piles up. So our equipment really can't handle that. So we have to bring in, they come over with the big front end loaders and try to make, those piles higher because there are no spots left. You can't, our equipment can't move those things. We don't have the size and power of the equipment that the township has. So they're always more than willing to come and help us, and we do the same for them and different things where we have better equipment than them. So I just wanted to mention them also. So that's a great thing, and that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Jannerone. Any
I have a
questions?
question.
Yep,
Yeah.
go ahead, Alex.
Can parents have you opt in no matter what, like you automatically get enrolled in that text option unless you opt out? I don't know what the CAN-SCAM regulations are for a public school district.
Yeah, go ahead,
If you don't mind.
please.
It does require us to know the provider. So we need to know that information, and also we want people to know that obviously, charges may apply, if we send them texting. So we really need for them to sign up as opposed to just sign up everybody, blindly, not to do an opt-in as opposed to an opt-out.
But it will be part of our registration
Regular
I was
process.
just gonna ask,
Where
okay,
it's
so,
always
Right.
been, we've always had the backpack, so at registration, we sign them up there, and Debbie handles that also, so.
It really is amazing how many people don't know who their cell phone provider is.
Yeah.
Who their mobile provider, did I just date myself by calling it a cell phone? I guess it's a mobile device, but you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
we have a lot of,
It's like
when we did the
car phone?
test, a lot didn't work
The car
because,
phone?
yes, the car phone, yes, the cellular device.
Thank you.
I don't know who mine was. I had to ask.
Anything for Mr. Janneron? All right, thank you, Alex. All right, moving on then, public comment. The following are a series of motions to be read by the committee chairpersons. All motions have been discussed at a recent public work session. Some motions have been approved at a public work session, and the minutes for the approved items are posted on the district website. At this point in the meeting, we will now conduct the first of 2 public comment sessions. The first session will be open for public comment on agenda items only. The second session will be at the end of the meeting and can be on any topic. Would anyone from the public like to comment on any agenda items at this time? And please remember to state your name and address when you begin your question. Ms. Conway?
The first and only commenter at this point is Sandy Abdelaziz.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Abdelaziz.
Go ahead,
I have to
Sandy.
wait- I have to wait for it to unmute me. Sandy Abdelaziz, 30 Dune Road, Wayside. Dr. Stamagos, I just have a quick question because it came up quite a bit on my Facebook page. Couple weeks ago, we had the delayed opening because of the 2 days of snow, whatever. This past Monday, we also did not the late opening, remote early dismissal. And we did the same thing this past Monday. A lot of people were very angry about it, not me, but they were very angry saying that we're using it as a cop out now, we're using it as a scapegoat, and that we're not, is delayed opening a thing of the past. So I just would like you to address the delayed opening, and is it something that is going to be considered going forward? Because I know it was questioned and people said they were going to email you. I don't know if they did or not.
Yeah, I got a few. Yeah, I mean, we absolutely will. I mean, everything is at our disposal, and we will utilize those things. I mean, I think what people have to understand is that I need to make a call by 5:15 in the morning, and I have the responsibility of the safety of over 4,000 students and staff. And when I wake up and there's several inches of snow on the ground and the roads, at least from what I can see out my window, which does go onto some main roads, look snow covered, and it's still snowing. And realizing that a delayed opening for the elementary schools is 10:45, but the delayed opening for a high school is 9:30, and it's a lot earlier, and we have to kind of be consistent. So sure, was Thursday a day that in hindsight we probably could have had a delayed opening, no problem? Yeah, probably, but that was not really as much the motivation as at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's snowing and there's a couple inches of snow on the ground, and it's, I gotta make a call, or all the bus drivers are on their way to school. And so, that was, I heard multiple conspiracy theories as to why we did not do that the other day. It really was that simple. Sometimes the calls are tougher than others. I was, we were not the only district to go remote that day. I mean, most did not, most at school. I would absolutely, attest to that. But, it's one of those situations, and I've typically been fairly, aggressive about trying to get into school, and we have snow. I believe that. I maybe in the back of my mind, knowing that we have the remote option makes it a little, gives me that pause a little bit more. I won't be as aggressive to try to get in. That's certainly possible. But I mean, it's all great until there's a car accident. It's all great until something happens. And so if I'm going to miss, I'd rather miss the way we did than send a whole bunch of people in. And as we've had in the past, you get snowed in, and so it didn't work out that well. I mean, Thursday I'm looking at it, there's snow starting about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. It's supposed to snow all day. If that verifies, then we're probably looking at another remote day at this point. But, we'll see how it plays out.
Okay, thank you for answering that. I kind of
Okay.
basically just told them all to contact you or their principals and
Well, we
that,
do
you know,
appreciate that because they did. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I'm joking, Sandy. I'm always happy to get those calls or those emails. I appreciate the folks who reached out.
Ms. Conway, anyone else?
I believe that Denise Bond was, no, I'm sorry. No, there are no more commenters at this point.
All right, thank you. Moving on in the agenda then, approval of minutes, Mr. Weinstein.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move to approve the meeting minutes in accordance with the Board of Education bylaws number 0168, work meeting, executive session minutes from February 9th, 2021.
Second.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thanks. Any questions, any errors, anything missing? Ken?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Weinstein. Approval of bills, Ms. Tortorella.
Move for the approval of the following paid items. Do I read these?
No, you can just say as
Per the
detailed
below.
below and the total.
For January and February 2021.
And you can just say the total, the 8 million.
Oh, okay, for a total of $8,917,108.74. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Skillman,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Paralamas,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
Yes.
Ms. Tortorella,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
and Ms. Fuller.
Yes,
Okay, the motion carries.
thank you. Thank you, Ms. Tortorella, and staying with you for financial management and resource services.
Thank you. I have 8 items for this evening. 7.1 is a acceptance and certification of monthly financial reports. Following resolution certifies that budget balances at the end of January 2021 were adequate to pay all remaining obligations of the 2020-2021 school year, and that account groupings required by the state have adequate balances. The board is also certifying that the independent reports of the treasurer and the business office are in agreement as per the below resolution and attachments. 7.2, the following motion is to transfer monies from one account in the budget to another and provide the adequate balances referred to in the first motion as per the below and the attached. 7.3, excuse me, move to approve the following security drills for the month of January 2021 as per the below. 7.4, move to approve the acceptance of a $10,000 grant from the 2020 Sustainable Jersey Grant Cycle funded by the Gardinier Environmental Fund as per the attached. 7.5, move to approve a revision to the personnel salary percentages to be charged off to the ESEA grant application for the 2020-21 school year as per the attached. Move to approve the use of facilities as per the attached memo dated February 16th, 2021. 7.7, move to approve the annual school district audit and corrective action plan for 2019-2020 as per the attached. And last, 7.8, move to approve a contract with MRC Game Time of Spring Lake under state contract number 16-Fleet 00121 for the Township of Ocean Intermediate School playground structure in the amount of $185,771.60 as per the attached quote.
Second.
Are we able to talk about this?
Yeah, we second it and then talk, usually.
Maybe I could just give a quick update on a couple things and then the board can jump in.
Yes, thank you.
So everything except for 7.6 and 7.8 are, have been reviewed in the workshop meeting. So if I can, I just want to touch on 7.8 and 7.6. And I'll start at 7.8 with regarding the playground. And I apologize, I wasn't able to get this on the workshop. I know I mentioned it, but was not able to get it on the workshop agenda for more discussion. Now, of course, this can be discussed as far as the board would like, and if it can't be approved tonight, we acknowledge that. It would just give us a little leg up as far as time goes in the spring for the install of the playground. So that's the only reason why I put it on tonight. And if it's something that can't be approved tonight, that I understand that. Just to go back a little bit, because I did have a few questions, and I know sometimes I have to remember that we have 3 new board members, and I know this most of the board members remember that this was a topic in our capital budget review last year through the budget process. And at that time, of course, the intermediate school principal and our director of facilities and other administration at the intermediate school were involved in looking at different types of structures and their needs. And of course, that's why they put it forward as a budget request at the time. And then also at the time, they were able to secure from Robert Wood Johnson really 2 $50,000 donations, in which we have just received the second $50,000. So that'll probably be on the next agenda. So that was $100,000 in donations that they were able to secure. And then we also went to the Camp David, because we know once the playground is there, that it's really open to everyone. And so Camp David was willing to put in, $20,000 towards the purchase price, because they would benefit from having a playground structure there. Right now, there is no structure. We have some swings there. And so that was really, and then one more grant we did, and this was really from Ms. Hayes, the shade structure grant, which we were really notified of, is when we did some within PTA at Dow Avenue, did some shade structures there. So now I was able to apply for that grant for part of the playground that is a shade structure. So, and I don't know if everyone was able to click on the link and see if you didn't, you should give it a try. There's a link in the board docs agenda that you'll see it in blue, the hot link, of course. And if you click on that, it'll give you a nice video. It's a YouTube video of the structure, and it really walks you through the structure.
Should we have Ms. Conley show it?
I
I'm
know,
sorry?
can we see?
Yeah, it's a great idea. Marianne, can you share that? Can you click on the link to the YouTube right in the middle of the page?
I think she'll need to take down the agenda first and share the screen for the YouTube video.
Sorry, I started watching it. That's why you guys heard the.
Oh,
sorry.
Ms. Conway, are you able to click that link?
Did you see, I did share it. Did you not see it?
No, we did not.
No, just the agenda stayed.
I might have to, Okay.
All right, well, while she's doing that, I'll keep talking. So we're not sure if we qualify for the grant yet. We put in the application. If the board remembers, they approved the submission of the grant, but we have not been told yet as to whether that's successful or not. But that was another $8,000. So with all those grant funds, we were able to move that project forward. Unfortunately, with everything that's happened since March, normally something like that would have been after the budget's approved. Then we would have gone out to our procurement process, and that would have been something that would have been done over the summer and would have been installed by, by the fall. But of course, at that point, we did not know where we were, and consciously, we had some budget things, the playground, the solar, that we wanted to make sure that financially we were going to be okay, and we are okay, as we've gone through the year. So that's where we picked this process back up again. and Mr. Amato at the intermediate school and myself met with two companies. The one company on the agenda is a state contract holder, which means that they've gone through a competitive bid process through the state, and then the state issues this contract that other school districts can use. So it says that we went through this competitive process, and MRC gave time. They were awarded this state contract number for this playground, for these playground items. Now, and Mr. Amato is fully on board with going with this, and I do. Maybe we can also have him chime in a little bit, because the big part of this, and if you go back to when Mrs. White was very active, we did a lot of the ADA type activities that Mr. Amato can speak to much better than myself, but the vendor had a lot of the interactive and the different things you'll see when we could see the video. You'll see the ramps the swings, and a lot of it is all ADA accessible. And with that in mind is how this was really spec'd out.
I think you've set it up perfectly.
Here we go. We're ready to go.
All right.
Yep.
That's the shade structure there.
And is this a rendering or it will look like?
It's a rendering, but it's very accurate.
And Ken, where is this going?
Closer to the 5th grade side where the swing set is now, really right behind the 5th grade hallway there, by the gym, like
Okay.
the gym, the hallway, and then out back there.
Gotcha.
Jazzy.
Hey Ken, did you run through the simulation and go down the slide and everything on one of them, or?
Yep.
No, Ken?
That was great. Should
I'm
we ask,
sorry?
do you want to go to Mr. Amato, just talk about?
Yeah, maybe
the
Chris, do
running?
you want to discuss some of the ADA portions of the playground?
Yeah, so it was, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Amato. Thank you.
So it was very important for us to make sure that this was an inclusive playground. The ramp going up has all sensory activities that we liked. We also liked that it has kind of like the sway ship, which is very wheelchair friendly and accessible. They have, I think they called it the crow's nest. They have a couple crow's nests that allows a student that is in a wheelchair, if they wheel up to it, they can just touch the sensory activities right in front of them instead of having to lean over across their lap to touch them. So they have the crow's nest there. They do have one of the slides that has a transition deck on it. So if the student is, with an instructional assistant, they can help, they can transition to the slide, go down the slide, and then the assistant would have to obviously get back down to help them get back in the wheelchair. They did the walkways that they did, the rubber poured walkways, one leading up to the ramp, the other one going towards the bottom of the slide, that is the handicap accessible slide, so that when the students do go down, they don't have to kind of sit in the ground if they have to wait for assistance. So there was a lot thought out to make sure that it was handicap accessible, and then on top of it, there's a lot of exciting things on the other end for students for climbing and other things like that. So we do feel that this was a great structure that brought excitement for all students that would be participating. And Ken, I don't know if it was discussed after, but we were looking at maybe expanding a little bit of the rubber area because that sensory walkway going up has sensory activities not only on the inside but the outside. And so for it to be wheelchair accessible, we were looking at expanding it, almost kind of making it like a lollipop shape as they walked up.
Thank you,
Okay,
Mr.
great.
Amato. I know Ms. Hayes and Ms. Beal and Ms. Talarico had questions. Alex, was it on this or was it on the other item?
No, it was on this.
Go ahead.
I really appreciate the, attention to accessibility and the sensory aspects of this. But I gotta say, it really seems like it's not age appropriate. If this is supposed to be for 5th through 8th grade, I showed it to my son who's in 5th grade. I showed it to a couple of parents of 5th graders, and their reactions were, this is a little kiddish. It's like babyish. So I'm just wondering a couple questions. If we asked kids what they want, I talked to a PE teacher at an elementary school, and instead of this, she said something like, a walking pathway with fitness stops or basketball things or Foursquare or kickball is more something 5th through 8th grade would use. Yeah, I just, and my son's first question was, I might go down the slide once or twice, but we're in COVID. Would we even be able to use this? So a couple of points to think about. I just don't think 190,000 for something that looks like it should be at the elementary schools is worth it. And would they even be able to use it in COVID?
I think we'll go back to Mr. Amato and Mr. General, but obviously we are all hopeful and planning for a world post-COVID. I think we are all planning. This is not something that's going to show up tomorrow. By the time this is procured, the equipment arrives and it's installed. This is something that obviously would be for our students' benefit next year and for many, many years. I think the useful life of these is typically 25 years, Ken, at least?
Something like that. Yes,
Right, so for-
So not this summer. That was going to be my question.
Right.
Not,
So this has a useful life long beyond that, and I think God help us if, we're in this position next spring and our kids still can't use playground equipment. So this isn't just for our kids right now. This isn't just for this year. This is for something for our kids who are going to be passing through that school for the next 20 plus years. But I'll go back to Mr. Amato or Mr. Janaron about the design and the age appropriateness of it and how they balanced, the accessibility needs with the age appropriateness of it.
Yeah, I know there were 2 companies, and I'll defer to Mr. Amato, that he looked at different designs and included other people. So Chris, if you want to discuss
Yeah,
that.
we looked at both designs. To be quite honest, we felt that this one had more, it had more options on the ramps for students to do a lot of climbing aspects to it, multiple slides. There's one slide that's kind of half tube and not half tube. Mrs. Hayes, similar to what you did, showed it to a few students, 4th graders that would be coming up, a couple 5th graders. And, unfortunately I had a different reaction from the students that we spoke to. But, people, they seemed excited for it. And, it's the deck, maybe you can't tell by the video, but the deck actually goes up to 8 feet high. So it is a pretty tall climbing structure for them to go up to. We did feel, compared to the other one, we actually felt, to use some of your words, like it was a little babyish or childish, the other version, which is why we went to this version, because we felt it was more age appropriate. It is designed, it's going to be mostly used for the 5th grade. So although it's going to be at the middle school, 5th grade is what has recess. So although I'm sure there might be, aspects of phys ed class or things like that that might get used at the older grade levels, but the design is more centered around the 5th grade ages, 9 through 11.
Can I ask why we were looking into a playground in the first place? Were PE or teachers asking for one? I did a quick Google satellite research today, and the middle schools in Neptune, Wall, West Long Branch, 2 in Brick, and in Toms River, none of their middle schools have any playground equipment.
I don't think most of them host fifth grade, though. We have to remember that we have a fifth grade, which is essentially an extension of an elementary grade in our middle school. I don't think any of those schools that you name have fifth grade. I'm not even sure any of them have
But
sixth
are we
grade.
calling this a fifth grade playground? So is this a $190,000 playground for fifth graders, or is this a school thing?
It's a school thing and a community thing, but I think the focus is on those kids who still have recess, which is the fifth graders.
And to just piggyback that off of that is that one of the main reasons why we did look into this is because of the recess laws that were passed years ago. And really, you know, we had to borrow a swing set from Camp David. We didn't really have much equipment. We purchased a lot of equipment, soccer balls, basketballs. PTA purchased a couple basketball nets for us. So over the past couple of years, because of the recess laws, we have been trying to build, you know, a great experience for our students when they go outside the recess, and giving them more than just, you know, a soccer ball or a kickball. You know, we're trying to, you know, continue to build.
I just have one final thing. Are the Robert Wood Johnson 100 grand or the Camp David 20 grand, are they contingent upon an actual structure, or like we must see 5 slides and whatever? And then also, my last comment is, it just seems disproportionate to spend all this money when, like, as a PTA at Dow, you know, we spent $15,000 on a giant jungle gym. So it doesn't seem kind of fair to some of the other schools, in my opinion.
I'll let Ken speak to the nature of the grants.
Yes, the donations were specific to a ADA playground at the intermediate school.
So
Think that was
the
the question.
expected district costs after the $50,000, the $50,000, the $20,000, and then a potential dermatologist, I think it's the dermatologist, right, that do the shade tree. The district cost is likely to be in the neighborhood of $60,000.
Probably 70, including the mulch.
All right.
Probably close to about 70,000.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. I saw Ms. Beal had a question, then Ms. Talarico, and then Ms. McGovern.
Yes, the quote says that no safety surfacing is included. I just want to confirm, what is the safety surfacing, the turf or?
The mulch.
That is the mulch, so it's
Yes.
not included.
Correct. That's right. That's right. Right. The
And
mulch-
that's
the mulch
coming
our
from-
our guys would do.
Okay,
And that's what brings
Yep.
it from what looks to be a $60,000 balance to more what you think is a $70,000
Correct.
district cost? Okay.
okay.
Ms. Talarico and then Ms. McGovern.
I was just wondering, could this be used for occupational or physical therapy, or is it solely for recreational use?
It's going to be on our school campus, so it can be used for whatever we need it to be used for. Honestly, we're going to use it to the best of our ability.
That's a great question. Thanks, Ms. Talarico. Ms. McGovern, I think I saw your hand up.
Yeah, to Ms. Talarico's point, that was actually going to be my question. Was also, for those of you that don't know, I have an MD daughter, a daughter in the multiple disabled class in 8th grade, who, while I will agree with you, Alex, this does not look great for my son who's in 7th grade. It looks incredible for my daughter who's in 8th grade. So that just was one thing that I just wanted to point out. And Ken, when you say the mulch, the bottom structure, the ADA compliant structure that I know Ms. White always brought up, that's included in this price.
The rubber, the poured rubber that Mr. Amato.
Okay, so you're just talking about the mulch that goes around it to get us from,
Correct.
okay.
Thanks, Ms. McGovern. Any other questions or comments related to the playground, which is 7.8?
Are kids at the elementary schools allowed to use the playground equipment right now? And when would the estimated like install date be?
I'm sorry, I don't know if I understood.
I think
Are
she
they
means our
allowed?
kids using the playground equipments like at Wayside Dow and Wanamasa now during recess.
Oh, during recess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they
I
are.
mean, when they go out.
When they go out.
And when would this install be?
Chris, I believe it was in April sometime?
Of this year?
Correct.
Yeah, he said that their turnaround window could be in the range of 6 to 8 weeks. So depending how things go, that would be if everything went well. For us.
If
So
it ever
so most
stops
likely
snowing.
end of April, beginning of May.
If the ground falls.
I'm sorry?
He said if the
If
ground falls.
Right.
And then also, sorry, and then also Camp David, has how many students in the summer? They have hundreds or thousands or
Hundreds, yeah,
Hundreds.
400 to 500.
Seems like that.
500 kids would be using this every day in the summer from a camp.
Correct.
Although we don't know if Camp David's coming this year.
If
Yeah,
they're-
we still haven't
if they're
voted on that
coming.
yet.
They- Yes, they.
Well, no, they
and
haven't
that's why
indicated
they
whether or not they're
donated $20,000 for the price of the, of the structure.
Right.
And we do envision, as everyone knows, there's many lacrosse, soccer games that, this equipment will be used by the community also after school weekends. So we feel that everyone will really benefit from that.
And
All right, Ms.
I'm sorry.
Parlamas. Yeah, Ms.
Ken,
Parlamas.
we had set aside enough money to cover the cost of, minus obviously the grants that we knew that we were gonna get, but we didn't realize we were gonna get hopefully the shade tree and the Camp David grant. I think at the time we weren't sure that we were gonna get that money. So
We,
have,
by the time we budgeted, we
did.
did know we were gonna get,
Okay.
we didn't know about the $8,000. But we do have enough to cover. We were actually able to get the price down a little bit too from our initial budget figures. So we got a installation discount and talking to both companies, we were able to get a discount from the MRC game time vendors. So we are within budget, yes.
okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Gilman?
Ken, if Camp David does come this summer, will the equipment be up by that time? 6 to 8 weeks is what Mr. Amato said, but
Yes, it should be up by the summer.
it could be up.
Yes, we hope by the spring to utilize, if or when
If
we
there
can
were-
utilize it, that in the spring that we would be able to utilize it with the school.
Have we heard back from the playground company if they are women-owned, minority-owned, or veterans-owned for almost $200,000? I would hope the board, if not for this, contract, if we would consider strictly those corporations for big purchases like that. Have we heard back?
I've not heard back from them, no, and I am not sure that we could only
Can't.
award contracts on that basis.
I thought you can after a certain threshold of money, like after 40,000 or after 100,000. I'll find you the stuff I found last year
Sure.
as well.
I have one more question. I'm just not really familiar with Camp David. How old are the kids? Like, where do they come from? I'm sorry, I just don't know.
Where they come from, I don't know.
Like from
their
our
addresses,
Ocean
but
Township or like other,
There's certainly Ocean Township kids who reside in Ocean Township. Where else they come from, I'm not sure.
So this is a camp that historically has been renting space from renting is a weird word, but renting space from the district to run a summer camp. Last year, obviously, they weren't here. It's TBD whether or not they're going to have the camp, given the restrictions, and if we're going to let them have the camp in our buildings. But typically, they have a few hundred kids. We've done it at Waste.
23, 24
years.
years.
And it was
Yeah.
at Wayside, am I remembering correctly?
Originally at the high school, and then
It's
it's been
moved.
at the
It's
intermediate
moved
school
around
for-
to a few different schools.
Right, for many years now. And then it's up to about $240,000
That comes
they
to the
pay us
district.
in annual rent.
So that'll be something that we'll have to decide as a district, in a future meeting, if we want to approve their facility use, just like, we
Well,
do
they have
with
a,
other
they have a separate lease, which I think next year may be the last year, so that lease would come up.
But we approve it every year.
Yeah,
Even with the
and what
lease.
are the age ranges of the kids?
they range, they have a wide range. They have some preschool students to, not exactly sure how many and how old, but they do go to older students.
Similar to the town camp in a way.
Yeah, very similar to the town camp, yeah.
And it would be age appropriate for them as well. I mean, I'm just thinking like little kids on big playground. I just don't want anyone to get hurt, basically.
There is a age, limit, so that'll be communicated to them. And of course, they carry insurance and things of that nature that we require of them, but they will understand, like anyone on our play structures, all have, posted age appropriateness for the equipment.
I just want to say, in scrutinizing this, we've been talking about this. I think we talked about it last year and talking about this year. And so I think, I just really like to weigh a little bit on the opinion of the principal and on Ken, kind of having thought through a lot of these things. I think, going through and kind of discussing if it's economically prudent is great, but the fit, I'm assuming that Ken and Chris, along with the other teachers who use the facility, have kind of worked this out. Is that not true, Chris and Ken?
Well said,
It is.
Mr. Weinstein. Thank you.
It is. We've been talking about it for a long time now. We've included some of our teachers in this conversation, our therapists in the conversation. It's been something that we've been wanting for our students for a while now, especially after the recess laws were altered, and we're very excited about it. We think our kids, it's going to bring a lot of excitement for our kids and something for them to look forward to. And we think that students of all abilities will definitely be able to enjoy it.
Great. And Ken, in your due diligence on this and scoping this out, did you, I'm assuming we were going through competitive bid or state contract, right?
Yeah, I think Ken
Yeah, it's a
touched on
state
that in the
contract.
beginning.
Yeah, I
State
think
contract.
I think the pricing for the size and what we're getting is good, very good.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Amato, for your work
Basically.
on this and for all of the teachers and other staff who assisted with this. Let's move on to 7.6 was the other item that I believe you wanted to discuss, Mr.
Yes,
General.
yes. Now, this item, and I don't know, Mr. Frankowitz, if you want to introduce it.
Yeah, so great idea from the high school Spartan players. They produced a play that they traditionally do every year, but obviously because of restrictions, they weren't able to have a live performance. So they have a video performance that they would like to be able to show. Their original idea was to do this at the show at Playa Park. They were going to do that, I think, this past weekend. Weather was not cooperative with snow on the ground and the cold weather. So they wound up wanting to move it to not this coming weekend, but the following weekend, but in the senior lot and at the high school. So, we love the idea. So let's just say that very clearly. This is not about doing the event. There's just a couple issues with, I think, the location that Ken and I have been discussing. And I think we have a lot of concern because it is still cold. Now, the forecast for that weekend, long range, 2 weeks out, is for, maybe upper 30s, low 40s. So not as cold as it's been, which is good, but still cold to sit in your car for a couple hours. And we have a lot of concerns with the neighbors about if people are going to run their cars for heat, that exhaust is a significant problem for the neighbors. So I think what we'd like to do is approve this event, but talk more with the advisor and the players about, one, if we had it at this location, could they guarantee, and how could we guarantee that people wouldn't run their cars? Because it is a significant problem for the neighbors to have those exhausts, the exhaust running. Or could we move it to a different location on campus, perhaps at the middle school, where it's a little more wide open and, wouldn't be not as close to residential area.
Jim, why is that date, that weekend, like so important?
Well, I think that they'd like to get it done sooner than later because they're starting on their spring musical and they would like to kind of put one to bed before
Maybe like a
they,
drive-in movie type of a
yeah,
scenario.
right. And they'd like
I think
to,
it's closer to an hour, right, than
I
most
think it's an
hours?
hour and a half.
Okay.
I think it's about 90 minutes total. Once again, great concept. That's not the concern. The concern, I think, is, is just with the cold weather, I think it's going to be a tall order for people not to want to run their vehicles, at least for part of the time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
actually, New Jersey law is.
Yeah.
no more
Yes, that's
than
what I'm
3
saying.
minutes.
Like you can't idle your vehicles and.
And there's fines,
Right.
believe me, I deal with the neighbors in the bus yard there. And it's an ongoing thing year in and year out. We do in-services for the bus drivers to remind them every year about the idling. But it's something we have signs up. It is something that I can guarantee you that we will be videoed and could be fined if we have 100 cars. And it's just it's not right to do to our neighbors. It's just not, to have 100 cars idling. And I just don't know I'm not sure how cold it's going to be, but I don't know how we could guarantee that we would not have idling cars for more than
We want
3
to
months.
give these kids who've worked so hard an opportunity to show their product. I mean,
And I
that's,
think
that's,
I think there's been so much discussion about athletics and how athletics can move forward and getting parents in and all of that.
Yep,
And, for us to also put the same emphasis on providing a way for this to be showcased. And I don't know if there's been discussions about also putting it on, accessing online too, after this performance is done or the show is done.
yeah, I mean.
As well, and then Ms. Gilman.
They're doing the drive-in movies at the test site and the cars parked there. Would we be able to perhaps
Well-
move it to the test?
Well,
site?
that was the plan. This past weekend, they wanted to have it there. That was the original plan, but with all the snow and also the cold temperatures there, it was just very cold, the town, I don't know that they're doing drive-in movies now. I think they were doing them when it was warmer, So I think that's the main issue with the town was, where the cars drive, that's snow covered and they don't plow that area. And probably more on the way. So I think we hit, like I said, I think it would be great to approve the event. I think we just have to work with them more about a more appropriate location than the senior lot.
Yeah,
you know.
senior lot is.
Like I said, we talked preliminarily maybe about the middle school, that it's a little more wide open there.
On the
Yeah.
5th grade
It's not
side.
even the front of the high school.
I'm sorry?
If you do the front of the high school towards the fields. I don't know how many cars they're, like if they're only doing 20 cars at a time, I don't know if they're doing it multiple times. I mean, 4 to 10 o'clock is a long period of time.
Now that's set up and
Yeah, that
that's,
was for
I think the
setup.
main event is just 8 to 9:30 or 7 to 8:30, something like that. It's one showing, I think, for the hour and a half.
So
if I'm
Ken,
not
is your
mistaken.
suggestion that we would amend
7,
this to not say specifically the parking lot, approve the event and let the administration work out with the staff and the organizers, the appropriate location?
That would be our recommendation, yes.
Can figure out the best spot.
We want to make it happen. so.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, that's what I'm concerned about, just the statement from the committee of the board that will, be supportive of it happening, but in a way that's not going to get us fined and have neighbors more upset with us than they already are.
Because, Ken in jail that weekend wouldn't be good, so.
Well, the fines are for the people running the car and for the facility.
And for the
It's really both.
facility.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments on this, which is 7.6? Okay. So that, Ms. Tortorella, back to you to make a motion.
Okay, so motion to approve items 7.1 through 7.8.
And then can you just amend 7.6 to remove the reference to the high school
With an
parking lot?
amendment to 7.6 to remove the reference to the location.
Second.
Sorry, not 7.6, that wasn't correct.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, 7.6.
You're right,
7.6.
7.6,
Mhm,
okay.
you got it.
And that was Mrs. Talarico with the second.
Yes.
Govern.
Okay.
McGovern?
Oh.
I'm sorry. Okay, any other discussion? Okay,
No.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Can you repeat what this is for, all through 7.1 for 7.8? Is that what you said?
correct. If you would like to vote differently on one of them, you can pull them out and just.
Yeah, I vote yes for all 7.7, 7.8. I vote no. I wish there was a different plan.
7.7 and 7.8, did you say?
No, just 7.8, no.
7.8.
Yes, for one,
I got you.
7.1 through 7.7.
Ms. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Paralamas,
Yes.
Ms. Telerico,
Yes, except for 7.8, I'm abstaining.
Ms. Tortorella,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Fuller.
Yes.
Okay, all the motions carried.
Mr. Amato, we expect an invitation to the ribbon cutting.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Tortorello. Moving on to instruction, education, and student activities, Ms. Gilman.
Yes, Mrs. Fuller, there are 6 action items for instruction, education, and student activities. 8.1, move to approve the 2021-2022 school calendar for teachers and students in accordance with the attached copy dated January 2021. 8.2, the work calendars for the 2021-2022 school year. Move to approve work calendars for the 2021-2022 school year for the following employees. Calendars attached: 10-month calendar for the school year and 12-month calendar for 10-month employees and 12-month employees. 8.3, cancellation to out-of-district private tuition for the 2020-2021 school year. Move to approve a cancellation to out-of-district private tuition for the 2020-2021 school year in accordance with the attached memorandum dated February 10, 2021. 8.4, out-of-district private tuition for the 2020-2021 school year. Move to approve out-of-district private tuition for the 2020-2021 school year in accordance with the attached memorandums dated February 10, 2021. 8.5, the out-of-school suspension report for the month of January 2021. Move to affirm the district's out-of-school suspension report for the month of January 2021 as listed below. 8.6, our HIB. Move to affirm the following harassment, intimidation, and bullying HIB incident summary reports for the 2020-2021 school year. The reports were previously provided to the board by the superintendent of schools. The board has reviewed the report and affirms the superintendent's decision. HIB report number 4 presented on February 9th, 2021, and HIB report number 5 presented February 16th, 2021.
Thank you, Ms. Gilman.
Okay, we have a second on those
Second.
motions?
Comments or questions from the board on 8.1 through 8.6? Don't see any with our folks at home. Anyone here? Nope. All set, Ms. Gilman. Mr.
Okay.
Dyer?
Call the roll.
Okay, Ms. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Paralamas.
Yes.
Ms. Telerico,
Yes to all, I abstain from the HIB, 8.6.
8.6. Okay, Ms. Tortorella,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
and Ms. Fuller.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is carried.
Thank you, Ms. Gilman. Personnel, Mrs. Paralamas.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Fuller. I have 6 motions this evening. First motion, I'd like to move to approve spring coaching assignments for the upcoming school year as listed below. 9.2, move to approve an unpaid family leave of absence as designated under FMLA and NJFLA for Lisa Kikuchi, math teacher at the high school, at the conclusion of her eligible sick leave approximately Tuesday, June 1st through Friday, October 29th, 2021. 9.3, move to approve an unpaid family leave of absence for Leanne Riley, elementary teacher at Wanamassa, at the conclusion of her eligible sick leave, which is approximately Wednesday, May 19th through Friday, October 1st, 2021. 9.4, move to approve an unpaid family leave of absence for May DeRogatis, custodian 1, Ocean Township Elementary School, for the period of Monday, March 22nd through Friday, April 16th, 4 weeks, returning to work Monday, April 19th, 2021, and Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021 through Friday, July 23rd. 9.5, move to approve a revision to an unpaid family leave of absence for Kristen Churchwell, English teacher at the high school, to reflect an earlier start to leave, Thursday, February 11th through Thursday, March 18th. And 9.6, move to approve the following retirements for Robert Paglia, bus driver, as well as Diane Rinaldi, math teacher at the high school. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Janaro?
Okay, Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Skillman,
Yes, for all but the varsity baseball coach, from which I recuse myself.
Okay, Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Paralamas,
Yes.
Ms. Telerico,
Yes.
Ms. Tortorello,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes.
and Ms. Fuller.
Yes,
Okay, the motion's carried.
thank you, Ms. Paralamas. Policy, Mr. Weinstein.
Yeah, I'd like to move to approve the second and final reading of the revised new policies and regulations as below. Just for some context on this, I did receive some comments from a couple of people on the board, and I reviewed it with Ken, and then late Friday evening, myself and Jim went over some of the specific parts of the policy that we were tweaking. So there were some things that were changed. I mean, generally, I believe where we could, there was an agreement to change may to shall or will. And I believe on some of the suspensions and expulsion things that was cited in the earlier meeting was able to be revised, a portion of them, but not through the entire piece. And I think, Jim, if you wanted to just explain that, we could, or I can get a second and then we can have a discussion around them.
That's probably the better way to go.
Yeah, let's get a second.
Okay.
please.
Second.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Spain.
So you want, okay, so
Yeah.
we spoke primarily about the suspension policy, where there's a suggestion that there were parts where it spoke of giving oral or written, I have to open it up to read the exact language, but the word is or written notification of basically what the child did, and it refers to an informal hearing, which is basically the due process hearing that a child gets. And I think there was a suggestion to make that an and instead of an or. And as I explained to Mr. Weinstein, is just that it's not always possible to provide that in a written notification of why the child is being suspended to the child in that initial due process hearing, because many times it's a impromptu, in the moment, it's happening right now, and it's just not a practical, feasible thing. And so to make it an end requires it, basically, and that would really be very difficult for the administration at the building level to make that happen. So that's why I think that should be kept. Or they're always given orally, verbally to the student, absolutely. And then there's always a letter that's generated either that day or the next day at the latest, that goes home to the parent. And, a student is never suspended without a parent knowing about it. More often than not, the parent is coming to pick the child up. So that's why I suggested that we keep that language as or and not make it and.
Right.
Dawn, and I know Dawn and Gina and John Bosman's are here too. If there's any further explanation about what they do every day as to why they would very much appreciate that language staying as or. But if there are no questions on that, no need if there isn't a need for further.
And Jim, just to get all the topics on the table, the other topic about this was you and I discussed a goal being within 72 hours or some wording like that, and you thought that had a double-edged sword to it, right?
Yeah, well, also, let me also say that if you look at, I think there was also concern about, letter going home, that it doesn't spell it out in the policy, but it does spell it out very clearly in the regulation. So if you look at the regulation section about letters that go home and what has to be included in that letter, it's all in there. So that's clear. In the new section that was added as a result of what Strauss Esme just sent us, it was language that says in case of a multiple suspension that a meeting should be set up with the language that they said, which was with the student and either a school psychologist or a school social worker or a SAC or counselor or what have you, to discuss why a student continues to get into why that child is being suspended so often. Obviously, there's a significant problem if you're talking about continued suspensions. And the suggestion was made to add a parent, which we did add that language. However, I will say there may be a time when the counselor may need the child to be in that meeting without a parent because the parent may impede, in some cases, what the child may wish to discuss. Certainly, a parent would always be aware that such meeting is happening and should be in the meeting, when appropriate. But other parts to that language is the meeting should happen when practical. And putting a time limit on that, or putting some kind, even a suggested time frame, once again, just kind of ties the hands of the administrators, because having a meeting in any kind of time frame for some situations is just not possible. We have situations where students may be, unfortunately, their first stop may be the police station as opposed to our offices based on what has occurred. And if the offense is serious enough, a student is being, they're detained, and we don't know when that meeting is going to happen. It's going to happen, but we can't put a time frame exactly on when it's going to happen. In a normal situation, that meeting could happen soon, as soon as we can get it lined up within a few days, I'm sure. But to spell that out, we can't guarantee that that's always going to happen. So I think that leaving the language the way it is what is appropriate. And there's a reason it's written with that kind of flexibility in mind so that, the people on the ground doing this are, they can work within a parameter that makes sense based on the situation.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board regarding the policies?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Tallarico.
Thank you, Ms. Fuller. So can someone just review the role of the policy committee, and why isn't the policy committee meeting prior to kind of review and discuss these policies before it's going to the vote?
Yeah, we talked about this last week. Where we kind of landed on this is that right now these policies are things that have been presented to us, and as a whole, as a board, we're going to look at these policies and kind of approve them. We have an audit going on at the end of the month, and once we have that audit, we can then determine what the pace is on doing these things. But one of the things that we have right now is, as a board, we have a policy that the board as a whole approves these. So we're gonna talk about it more when we do our audit. I think Irene, did I put Grace Ann on that email to you as well?
Yes, I got the email, but I'm not sure who else did, Jeff.
Yeah, I think I put Grace Ann on. Yeah. So I think we're going to the thing that we're most concerned about is the process of when these regulations come in mid-year and have to be reviewed. And I think when we have our audit and we look at that and we have a discussion with Sandy and Ken, we can talk through the process a little bit better.
Because
But the committee is going through that review process with Strauss Esme.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
these were
correct.
policies that had come through in the last update from Strauss Esme, where we knew there were known changes or deficiencies that had to be made that had already been flagged for us by Strauss Esme.
Correct. So these are not part of that audit / review by Strauss Esme. These are not. If you remember, we had started doing the policy, remember they call them alerts, like recent changes to policy, and we had approved some in December, some in January, and this was the last batch into February that had come across as alerts from Strauss Esme. And so then the committee now is looking back at the other policies and the review and the audit by Strauss Esme. And then, as Mr. Weinstein said, I think they have to decide going forward after the review and when more alerts come in, how that's going to be handled.
Yeah. So I like to not discuss it. I like to discuss it when we can with Sandy and Ken and ourselves and talk through what we think is a good process.
Okay, and when is that going to be?
We haven't had a date yet, but when we have the date, we'll make sure everybody on the committee knows. We have to talk with Sandy to first set up the date with her.
Well, she promised by the end of the month. So as soon as we hear, so it should be in the next few weeks.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Talarico. Any other questions or comments from the board on policies?
I have a quick question. Oh, did I
Go ahead,
ring?
Ms. Hayes.
Who in the building is trained to administer Narcan? Is it just the nurse?
I know the nurses are. I'm not sure if anyone else within the building has been specifically trained, but I know the nurses have been. I don't know if Dawn or Chris or any of the principals know if anyone else has been trained within the buildings. Are the athletic trainers, Dawn, maybe?
So right now it's the nurse, and the nurse I was trained, and Mike Pembleton, our head of security, was there for that training as well.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I feel like the middle school had people there as well.
That's good. That was my concern, is in large gatherings, like if there were hundreds of people, obviously not during COVID, that the policy says, it must be accessible. But if the nurse isn't there at 7 p.m. on a Friday event, it's good to know that there will be other people that are trained. So that, I believe, was my only question.
Thank you.
And for such an event, Ms. Hayes, just, there's usually police presence at
Police,
those who would also have been trained in that.
Can I just add one more thing? There was regarding the parent and guardian language that we added on C1, which is page 9 of the regulation. We did miss a part where that should have been added also. So I would just want to mention that so everyone's aware when they vote on it, that with that amendment to C1, we'll add the parent and guardian language. That's, again, as Dr. Svanko said, talked about, that's with the multiple suspensions. So there was just another paragraph that mentioned that in the regulations.
Right,
So-
that's so that the regulation reflects the
The
policy.
policy
Yeah.
to be consistent.
Right.
Okay.
Are we also going to change the title of 2270? Teaching about religion, is it officially going to be religion in the schools? Because that has nothing to do with teaching about religion. We're keeping it as what it says on the paper, correct?
What it says on the paper.
Yeah, whichever one came across from Strauss Esme, I have to look.
Yeah, religion in the schools.
But it's on policy alert summary, it says 2270, teaching about religion. So I just wanted to know, what's going to come up if somebody searches this?
The policy, as reflected on what we're voting on, the policy name is religion in the schools. So that should be what is reflected in the board docs and things like that search.
Yeah, I can make sure that that's what it is. And where was the other spot?
It's just when you look on the
In the agenda, it's saved as teaching about religion.
file name.
2270.
It just says it there.
But if you look at the policy, it's
Yeah, the policy language itself appears to be correct.
They should be the same, but I'll make sure that, so that
I
it's
think it was just
religion in
written on the
schools.
agenda incorrectly, I think.
It's probably an old title, perhaps.
Yes.
So do we not have a teaching about religion policy then?
I think this one replaces that.
Yeah, I think that's the
But they have
old
nothing.
name.
They have nothing to do with each other. So if we cancel this one, we don't have a teaching about religion policy. That's what you're
Well,
saying.
I can check.
I don't know,
It's,
we'll look into it.
does it indicate that it's being abolished?
No.
Or no?
No.
I don't have it, the paper in front of me.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. I can check and see which one, if one needs to be brought back, we're gonna have to bring it back. Sure, we'll be in the attachments. Yeah, if they're two separate policies.
They appear to be.
I think the file name is the file name is incorrect and doesn't reflect the name of the policy.
All right, so
Yeah,
then
I
it
mean,
was,
it's supposed to be religion in schools. That's what it's supposed to be, 2270. We'll have to look to see what the other one is.
all right, so then the other one wouldn't change. We're only voting on the one that, or the board's only voting on the one that's the detailed policy in there.
And this is just the policy, not the regulation.
It's P, right?
Right. No, I'm just
No
looking
R.
as I'm reading to make sure the regulation isn't here too. It's just the policy.
Okay.
So you're changing the name of the policy? to
Well, no,
reflect-
the name of the policy, 2270,
Right.
is staying the same.
Is
It's
teaching-
referenced in the list
Can you open it up?
incorrectly.
It says religion in the schools. which is
Yes.
Correct.
Right.
That's what's
So this
correct.
is the correct.
That's the one that
Yes.
we're approving. Obviously, you haven't, if they're two different policies, you haven't
As our
seen the other one,
policy.
so that would have to come at another time. If there are changes to that, I'm not even sure. It may have just been mixed up, so I'll have to double check that. But the 2270 religion in schools is what you're
That's what
approving.
we're,
So that's the only thing that would be amended at this time.
Right. And just the policy, not there's no regulation associated with
Correct.
it
Just the policy.
in this vote. All right. Any other comments or questions related to the policies? All right, Mr. Weinstein. Now, Mr. General, does Mr. Weinstein need to actually amend for that additional language that you said?
Yeah, if you could, just for the regulation in,
5510, I think.
yeah, 5610.
5610, sorry.
What do you want me to?
The language
is it?
under C1, if you could just amend.
In the regulation for 5610 in section C1, just to amend to also include the language
Parent and guardian.
parent and guardian.
Correct.
And that
Okay.
would then make the regulation consistent with the changes that were made to the policy.
Well, that's a mouthful. Okay. You might help to help me along with this one, Janice. Like I'm singing
Okay.
a song I don't know right now.
All right, I'm ready.
Move to approve the second and final reading of the revised new policies and regulations as follows. With the change in policy 5610 C1 regulation to include
Yes.
parent or guardian in that process.
Nailed
Yes,
it.
That was good?
yes.
And then we would just need Ms. McGovern to,
Second.
Is that you, Amy? Thank you.
It is second.
all right, you ready?
Yes, Mr. General, please call the roll.
Okay, Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman,
yes,
Ms. Hayes,
I'm going to abstain prior to the audit of the committee.
Ms. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Paralamas,
Yes.
Ms. Talarico,
I abstain.
Ms. Tortorella,
Yeah.
Mr. Weinstein,
Yes,
and Ms. Fuller.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you,
motion
Mr.
carries.
Weinstein.
thank you.
All right, so that brings us to old business. Any old business from the board? Ms. Tortorella.
Thank you. Just a quick, just a comment. I just want to say thank you to the administration for getting the text alerts out so quickly. I was very
Well,
happy to see that email come through. the
As,
other day.
as Ken said, we'll thank Ms. Anselli and others who've worked on
Yes.
that, absolutely. And I
Thank
know Ms. Weldon worked on that. So, thank you.
That's all.
Other members of the board with old business? Ms. Talarico?
I have one question about last week, and I apologize for not being there last week, but I did watch the video. And I do have a question about the school safety committee. So according to the anti-bullying law, it states there's a school safety committee that reviews all the HIB investigations. And I do understand that they're looking for trends. So I was wondering, since they're meeting twice a year, if there is any kind of report that is given, because I don't remember one given to the board last year. So that's my first question. How long are the meetings? I just have some questions about the school safety committee, because it was touched upon, but it wasn't really, I guess, discussed further about details. Are the parents that are on these committees also staff? Is there data reports on the findings that could be shared with us?
The schools, the HIB report grades that each school does each year that the board does approve, those are all produced and filled out and completed by the school safety teams. So in essence, that's kind of their report as to how, based on their observations of cases and programs and things that go on within the schools, that's their assessment of the school's performance as it relates to the many facets that make up the report card on HIB. So that's probably the best thing that I could say, and that does go to the board for approval.
What's the composition of those committees, I believe Ms. Talerico asked?
Regarding in some cases, the parent on the committee is sometimes a staff member of that building who also is a parent of someone in the building, and they serve as a parent. That has happened in the past, yes.
It sounds like a conflict, though.
Well, there's a lot of things that sound like a conflict right now, but
Go ahead.
it's a different story.
So the trends you're saying are just in the HIB report card? There's no report based on, how many were in a specific category and how we could better, address the needs of that specific, category or population, or I'm just saying the HIB progress report, it doesn't give you a lot of information about what the cases are about, in my opinion. I don't know.
Well, there's a couple things. 2 times a year, I report out on the number of cases, the nature of the cases, the types of professional development that's provided. Then the school safety teams provide they vote themselves basically, and the board sees that report and votes upon that report. Obviously, the board is informed of the individual cases and provided as much detail as can be provided as they occur. So I'm not. And then
I guess my point is, how are we making things better in certain areas if we're identifying trends based on the HIB reports?
Well, that's exactly the job of the safety teams. That's their job to know what's going on within their particular school and to work to address those specific issues, because obviously what might be an issue in one school may not, there's issues across the board, obviously, in all schools, but a high school issue may be different than a Dow Avenue issue. So it's the job of those individual teams to kind of recognize where the problems are and what are the things that could be done to solve those, to try to solve those problems.
I mean, obviously, social media might be, more relevant in high school or the middle school than in the grammar schools. So I guess my question is, how is that information getting delivered to the rest of the school? Is there a report? Is there a discussion? Like, how is that being delivered?
Is it more through implementation of recommendations?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that it's the safety team's job to come up with recommendations as to how the types of professional development and the types of things that they would be working on. And then, that's something that they would discuss within the schools as they plan, the types of activities and things that they're going to do throughout the year. It varies by school. For example, at Dow Avenue right now is part of their strategic planning process. Culture, school culture is a big part of what they're doing. So, I'm sure that some of the people from the school safety team, I think, are on Ms. Lepesnick's committee. And so they're talking about those kinds of things, how to address, these kinds of behaviors and how we can work to not have these types of things happen. So those things happen, throughout the year on a school, per school, based on the needs of the school.
Okay, so there's nowhere though that we can, as a board, get any type of report that says this is what's trending at the high school, whether it be social media or apps or.
But that's in the report I give twice a year. I tell you by school, how many, the types, the nature of them, how they were, where they came from, what was the, how the HIB was carried out. Was it an electronic? Was it cyberbullying? Was it, whatever? So that's a report that comes to the board once in January and then once again in July for the period, for the 5 and 6 months periods leading up to that. We just did it at the January regular meeting. So, that's the report that the Board of Education would see, where they could see trends and things like that. Then it would be the school team's job to look at those. Okay, we had 6 cases in the last 6 months, say, just for example. What were those 6 cases? How did those 6 cases compare to last year's cases and the year before that?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
So how would we get that information, is what I'm saying.
That's something that typically is handled on the building level, and then that data is reported up in its aggregate to the board through Dr. Stefankowitz's report.
I mean,
and I think understanding too that the people who are involved on the building level have a level of understanding of the detail within each of those incidents that isn't necessarily something.
I mean, if the board would like, I can do a summary of the last X number of years. I mean, but if the board would like that, I mean.
I would like to know what the trends are.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if anybody else.
January report, but over the last.
We could take our January and July report and go back, 3-4 years or whatever, you'd like. I would say no more than 5 and do a summary of that information. If that's
let's start there.
If that's the
and
wish
see
of the board,
what
sure.
we see, and we can.
Sure.
And why don't we use that as our starting point, and then we can go from there, and we'll put it on the agenda as well. And does this also fall under Ms. Weldon?
Well, as the district, coordinator, I mean, in terms of when you say this fall under, what do you mean? The teams?
Yes.
Well, it's her overall oversight, but typically those teams are run by the school specialists, which up to this point has been the principals, and we're transitioning over to other folks. And so, that's primarily where the work gets done at the building level.
So we'll look at the next agenda and see if we can have this on for the first March
Yeah,
meeting.
we have that for the last several years. We can.
Yeah, and then we'll use that. We'll just look at trends from there, and then we can see where we want to take the conversation, if anywhere from there.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, just as an FYI, we talked, I think, earlier about, like we had a social media night at the middle school last year, and that, for example, was a direct result of the school safety team looking at a problem related to social media and cyberbullying, and bringing in that student parent program directly as a result of the school safety team analysis.
Well, I think that's a great idea, because there's more accountability that kind of filters to us and might help drive not just our policy and regulations. If we see the same kind of reports coming from the safety committees. But as you said, here's an assembly program that was put together as a result of the safety committee.
Right.
And I also wondered, does the safety committee ask for input from the rest of the staff if they're seeing a repetition of particular problems?
Well, I think, once again, I think that every safety committee, operates how they operate in their building. I don't know that they necessarily go around and each ask, staff members. I think what they do is they review the cases that come to them, and they see, what occurs, what's been, what those trends are. Is there one particular area that needs more attention than others? is there one particular grade level that we're seeing that is more of a problem than others, things like that. So, what they're looking at is the culmination of that information. So I don't know that they go beyond that too much, because I think that is summary information from the school. So.
Can you just clarify? Oops, sorry. A little bit of what Irene was saying, because I think possibly even having a teacher who is acting as the parent is a little bit of a conflict of interest if there are no other parents on the safety committees. So at the 5 schools, 5 safety committees, are there any parents right now that are on those committees that are not teachers, like that are plain parents?
Yes.
Yes.
And many times it is a parent, it's a PTA parent, it's someone who's available during the day. I think it's more common that it's a parent who is not a teacher, but it has happened.
But right now, all 5 schools have at least one parent who has no affiliation with an employee relationship.
I don't have the staff list, the team list right in front of me. The principals maybe could speak to that, but I believe that they have parents who are parents. I don't have it in front of me though.
I'm sorry, and realize too that in some cases, in some of that analysis, a parent who is a parent could not review to the same level. And I'm not disagreeing.
Sure.
I'm not disagreeing that it's a great practice to have it be a parent who's also a staff member. I'm not saying that it should be that. What I'm saying is though, is that there are some things in that analysis that a parent could not see because of the privacy nature of the case. They're not going to look at the specifics of the case, but they could see they could see what an outcome is. They wouldn't be able to know who the students are, things like that, but they would be able to see the trends and they'd be able to look at those kind of things.
Is there a way to find out? Because, I mean, in the interest of parent engagement, if one of the 5 schools, for example, couldn't find a parent that isn't a teacher, I mean, surely we can work with the PTAs to find one parent.
Yeah, I'll speak with the principals about that and see where we are for this year. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I just have one additional question about the safety committee. Are they reviewing, staff or teacher incidents as well when it comes to safety? Like, what other incidents do they review besides HIB?
Well, they typically look at the whole climate. The primary job, I think, is to look at and in some cases they're called the school climate committee. It depends on. I think the school safety committee was the original name within the policy, and it's shifted more towards climate committee. But I think their job is to kind of assess the overall climate of the building and suggest ways in which to improve overall climate, which HIB and behavior, student behaviors and things like that. That's a part of that. So that's their main function.
Okay, so they don't review if a teacher was hit or a staff member got hurt or anything like that.
Well, if it related to a student incident, it would fall within a student incident.
Yeah, I mean, not.
If it was reported as a HIB, as a possible HIB, and there was a HIB investigation, they will review it.
Okay, so they give trends for that as well. is what you're
Trends for
saying.
things that are either, it has to be reported as a possible HIB for it to go before that committee for review.
Okay, and then a trend would be like how to prevent something like that from happening again, or
As Jim said, most of the time what happens is then that group talks about other types of programming that they could bring in to help be preventative. Sometimes it's parent events, sometimes it's a school-wide, year-long kindness project or a connection, from upper grade levels to younger grade levels, different buddy programs. Sometimes it's an outside vendor coming in and doing an assembly program for both students and parents. A lot of times that committee collectively comes together and talks about what do we need? What are we lacking right now? What could benefit us? And then that team tries to come up with some ideas. A principal might try to put some funds aside in budgeting for these types of programs. They'd work with their PTA groups to see what PTA groups can bring in for parents. And that's really, it's a conversation and a committee, you know, it grows organically from that conversation in the committee, in the reviewing the events and the incidents.
Because I think it's really important, you know, just like you're saying, it's wonderful that this is happening. It's just if the board can somehow be part of that, just in case, you know, there's something we can approve for money wise, or, you know, for a program to help with this. I mean,
Absolutely.
safety is of the utmost importance in every, you know, in every school, for every student and every teacher. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other old business from the board? Ms. Gilman.
Any update on the strategic planning?
Next month.
Next month. Thank you.
Mhm.
And just one thing that I wanted to mention, which is kind of old business and crossing into new business, but I'd asked Ms. Tortorello and Ms. McGovern as chairs of the Planning, Construction, and Finance, respectively. Anyone who's ever been with me in this building knows that I find it kind of wholly unacceptable that this administration building is completely inaccessible to people with mobility impairments. You know, we have multiple staircases, we have one lift outside, and it is just, you know, to me, it's something that does not reflect the overall character and intent of our district as it relates to these things. You know, we've talked about moving the building and things like that, things that are just not practical in the given climate. So I've asked both of them to start looking in to options for the building in terms of how we can make this building accessible so that a student, a parent, an employee can come here and have independence and be able to fully access this building as it stands right now. An employee who works here couldn't, you know, move around the building. The restrooms are in the basement. There's no elevator. We have one lift outside that we have to hope works if someone who has a mobility impairment wants to come in when we have people back in person. And once they're here, they can't leave this room. And I think we all think that that's not necessarily something that we are proud of. And they're going to look into see what options we can have, recognizing that this building is very old and there will be some constraints on that. And we always have to have some budgetary concerns in mind, but they're going to come back and present some options to the board, which is hopefully something that everyone will embrace. I think it's important for our district.
Is that something that we can place in the budget now? I mean, like a
placeholder,
wish list item, and then look into it and then decide at that point?
I would think that any major thing that we do would take at least more than, it would be next budget cycle.
Okay.
If you're talking about major renovations, if you're talking about a chairlift or something.
Probably like a
or
bathroom,
or a
you know.
bathroom, something like that.
Yeah.
That would be appropriate for
Okay.
this budget. So
Maybe we should talk though if there's anything we'd want to put in the budget for procurement of professional services, things like that, if we're going to need that. We could talk about that offline. We don't need to talk about it here, but it's something we might want to think about if, you know, as the committee begins its work, you know, what they're going to need to help them. And I know some of that work's already been done, right, Mr. Jenner, and through past studies. So we might just need to have work updated, not necessarily start from scratch.
That's what I was thinking, is that maybe just me, Natalie, and Ken can sit down and kind of go over what's been discussed of possible, you know, ways to help the building, and we can go from there.
2 boxes in my office.
I'm so excited for them.
But do you know where those boxes are?
Absolutely.
Sure he does.
Absolutely.
Very question.
Those are
Very
everything
important
is.
question, Ms. Corderello.
Absolutely.
There
So
should be a game show of asking Ken for a piece of paper, some sort of document, seeing how long he'll get it faster than we think.
Sure do.
so thank you for that. Any new business from the board?
I just have one thing, if I can.
Sure, Ms. McGovern.
I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Mike Hall. I know that his team, and this is selfishly as a parent, being able to watch my son play basketball while we weren't allowed in, and even today when I couldn't get there, is incredible. The fact that it's also still online so that grandparents can watch it, and aunts and uncles and whoever, is incredible. I know that similar things were done at the high school. I can only speak for the middle school because that's what I've watched. I do hope that we continue to stream these events, as it seems to be easy to do even after COVID is over, because I do think that it's nice to give the option to families that can't make it. You know, sometimes our games are at 3:45 and parents can't make it, or grandparents want to see it and they live far away. So it's been a positive to COVID, let's say that. So I know my call was instrumental in getting it done, and I just wanted to give him a thank you for that.
Yeah, thank
Yep,
you.
absolutely. In fact, can I add one thing? I just wanted to also give a shout out to Mr. Todd and Mr. DeSemini and Ms. Kasuba and Mr. Amato, because last Friday, when the executive order came down that parents could get into buildings, while other districts were doing in-depth analysis of the executive order to see all the things they could and couldn't do, we had our parents in the stands on Friday night. So just wanted to point that out.
Yes, right. Thank you. Yeah.
Nothing against those other districts, by the way.
Ms. Hayes, I think you raised your hand. There you are.
Yeah, just quickly, were we going to be putting the learning loss data on next agenda?
We said
Yeah, the next meeting.
We said one in the next two agendas.
The grant, right?
The next
The grant,
Yep,
the grant information.
Yes, the data that's in the grant, yes.
Yep.
And there's a possibility we might have heard about the grant by then.
I hope so. Yeah. It's supposed to start April 1st, right? So, is it?
Well, if judging by preschool.
Yeah. March
Any other
31st.
new-
Well, then.
Any other new business from the board? Oh, my goodness. Seeing, Alex, is your hand up from before? Okay. Then we will go to public comment on any item. If you have public comment on any item, please message Ms. Conway via the help desk. Ms. Conway, is there anyone who would like to make a comment or ask a question?
Yes, there is. One commenter at this point is Denise Bond.
Thank you, Ms. Bond. Ms. Bond, you can go ahead.
Yeah, just give me a second, please. I have to pull over. Okay, so my question is, oh yeah, so here's my question. I was a little, it was unclear exactly what was being changed about the religion. What religions, the religion thing, I'm very confused on that. You know, like what exactly is being changed?
Yeah, Mr. General, do you want to give an overview of what the religion in schools policy
You want me to do it?
encompasses or?
I'll do it. It basically just speaks to that we need to, as a district, we don't take any particular stance on promoting any religion, any one religion. It's basically that we will, be very neutral in the teaching of religion, that we as a district have a responsibility to teach about religion. That's part of the state standards for social studies, but we don't advocate any particular religion or take a stance in favor of or against any religion. We teach about, we don't advocate for.
Okay, next question, just regarding that is what grades are these being taught?
I think it speaks generally to how religion is handled throughout the.
Yeah, it's K-12. I mean, obviously, it's taught differently at an elementary level than it would be at a secondary level.
And Ms. Bond, I think you said you're driving, but the full text of the policy that we voted on this evening is in the board docs. If you want to take a look at it and then let us know if you have any questions from there.
Yeah, actually, I'm not really driving. I'm just listening to the thing, but I just left. But I'm pulled over. Anyway, the other, okay, so you just teach about religion and the board docs, where would I find that information? Did you say about the religions? It's it's in this one or last one?
The policy that what you heard us discussing here tonight, the text of that is, yes, it's an attachment under agenda item 10 for tonight's meeting materials. Yes.
Okay, but that was that originally scheduled for last week's meeting?
We discussed, this has been on the agenda for at least two other meetings. It's been on the agenda for a few iterations as, board members had comments, et cetera, for first and second reading. So yes, it's been on the agenda for a couple of meetings now.
Okay, so policy 10.1.
It's actually under section 10 of our agenda, but the actual policy number is, hold on one second,
26
is
something.
2270, 2270.
Okay. All right, that's my only question for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Pond. Ms. Conway, has anyone else, I see that Mr. Mayor Fernicola is with us tonight. He has his hand raised.
Yes, yes, he does. And Paul Fornicola is next.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here. I want to raise with the board members concerns that I have with the way that your special education is being administered in the district. I'm an attorney. I'm also a father of a special ed student that used to be in your district, so I'm well aware. But in the last couple of years, my capacity has been as an attorney for a family in the district, and I will try to do this concisely, but I want to lay out for you, because what I'm really coming out here tonight is because I would like the board members to take the time to investigate what happened to this family to prevent a similar hardship from happening to other families in the district. So what happened was that this child, when she was in first grade, 2 years ago.
I don't think this is
definitely not appropriate.
This is no good. This is no
Mayor
good.
Fernicola,
This is no good.
Mr. Fernicola, I apologize, I'm using your official title. I think there are some
Right.
concerns about the confidentiality of the student that might be
Well, the student is
revealed
my
here without
client.
his parent.
I'm giving background information to the board. So what has occurred is that the parents, and based upon the recommendations and input from the teachers, sought a classification from the district starting in November of 2008. That was rejected. There's been litigation for over 2 years.
And really, this should, I'm sorry, I guess
Who is speaking? Who is interrupting me? Can they identify? Can you identify?
It's our board secretary.
Ken Janaron, how you doing?
It's Ken. It's our board secretary.
I absolutely believe that this is inappropriate to go into a specific case regarding a special ed student.
I'm not going, thank you, Mr. Janaron. But so now it happened now today, 2 years later, the child study team has finally recognized and
Are we gonna?
Excuse me, Mr. Janaron, if you would please stop interrupting me
Mr.
while I'm speaking.
Fernicola.
I think you got to shut him off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Weinstein. Mr.
I think,
Fernicola, I think there's probably interest from the board as to the concerns you're raising, but whether or not this is the appropriate forum for such, I don't know that that is the case. If we want to, we can follow up with you and we can follow up with the family. I'm assuming that Mr. Janaron and Dr.
Give me a call.
are aware of which family Mr. Fernicola is representing, so that we can find the appropriate time, the appropriate forum for you to do so. Mr. Fernicola, you muted yourself. Can you unmute yourself?
I will limit myself to general comments. I would suspect, based upon the conduct by your assistant superintendent, Ms. Zona, and the law firm that you have representing yourself, Schenck Price, that the board's special education litigations costs have skyrocketed
All right.
over the last 2 years.
Mayor,
And
with
if I-
all due respect, and you know I mean that, let's find the appropriate time and forum where we can speak about this in the detail that would be appropriate and the forum that would be appropriate, so that we can give this matter the attention that it would deserve. And I don't think we can do that here, because we will have to speak in generalities. We can't speak about specific members of staff. We can't speak about a specific child, nor the specifics of the case. And I think we would welcome the opportunity to figure out the appropriate time and venue to do so. And I think I say that with all due respect, Mayor.
I would encourage Mr. Fernicola to reach out to myself, Mr. Janaron, as that would be the appropriate chain of communication in this matter. And if he has a concern, he should bring it to us, and we'd be happy to discuss it with him.
Well, I mean,
Well, I'm
if he has a
keeping
concern,
my
yes.
comments general. I have a right to make comments, and I've heard what Mr. Janaron said, and I'm making general comments that I'd like to be permitted to finish. That, and I will be brief, that what the board should be concerned about is an attitude from your representatives that I will describe as contemptuous toward special education. Specifically, what I mean by that is an attitude that resources spent on special education are in essence a waste of resources. And that for public officials and your representatives to take that with regard to special ed, they are your representatives. You have a fiduciary duty to discharge and make sure these children receive an appropriate education. And I would like you to look into this situation, because this is not the type of situation where winning is the most important thing. What is the most important thing is to provide the appropriate services for these children. And that's what I asked you to look into, because that is not what is being provided to these children. That it's an attitude of winning at any cost, regardless of what this board's responsibility is. So thank you very much. And it's a serious issue, and I will follow it up with Mr. Stankiewicz and Mr. Janarone, and that this matter be looked into by each of the individual board members, because it's a serious concern. And I know you take your roles as elected officials seriously. You would not run for public office and spend considerable time and effort and fulfilling your roles. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to address the board tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Fernicola. We do appreciate your comments, and we will make sure that this is followed up with accordingly. We do take concerns like this very seriously, and we will want to make sure that it's followed up on. So I appreciate your bringing it to our attention. Thank you. Ms. Conway, is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment or ask a question?
Yes, there is. There's one more commenter, and that's Susan Green.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
You're unmuted, Ms. Green.
Ms. Green, go ahead. Ms. Green, I apologize, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute her. Do we want to come back to her? We have another commenter.
Sure, we'll go on to the next, and then we'll return to Ms. Green. Go ahead. Who's next?
All right. Liz House is the next.
Thank you, Ms. House. State your name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
Hi, Elizabeth House, 510 Green Grove Road. I just wanted to follow up with what Mr. Fernicola was sharing with the board. What is the appropriate forum to bring concerns of parents who I personally know who have similar issues, the same issues that Mr. Fernicola was bringing to the attention of the board? What would that appropriate forum be?
Thank you. Well, I think first through your building, then to Dr. Stefankiewicz, the superintendent, for sure. That's the first line of communication, absolutely. And then there are remedies past that in terms of appeals, et cetera, that ultimately would come to the board. But typically individual matters like that don't come to the board through that, through the normal chain of command until we get to a situation where there's legal involvement or an appeal.
Well, that's what I'm referring to, is when there's that legal involvement. Specifically, like Mr. Fernicola was saying, the aggressive nature of the special services attorney.
Go ahead, Dr. Singh.
Yeah, once again, the appropriate way to address any, concern that a person has is you follow the chain. If you have an issue with how our attorney or any employee would have acted, or any contracted employee would act, you bring that to my attention. That's the appropriate process and the appropriate venue to for that such a thing to be heard. And I'd be happy to sit and discuss any concern you have.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. House. Ms. Green, were you able to unmute yourself?
I sure did.
There we go. Hello.
Good evening, everybody. I have two questions. Well, one actually is it's whatever. It is what it is. On the strategic planning committee for Dow Avenue, and also the special education, the breakout sessions we had, and the remedial actions that are taken, how many members are on each committee, and how many of those members are parents?
Let me defer that to either Dr. Stefanowitz or perhaps the leads and.
Yeah,
Ms. Zona and Mr. Prince.
No, Ms. Zona and Mr. Plesnick can answer that. I think there's at least 2 parents on special ed.
On the Special Ed Strategic Planning Committee, is that what the question is?
Yes, yes.
There's 2 parents.
And there are 2 parents on OTES, the Strategic Planning Committee as well.
And how many members do you have on each? About 8 to 10?
8, I think, yes, I think we have about 8.
We have 8 as well.
Right, that was going to be my question. 2 of 8 is different than 2 of 50, so, right, thank you for that context. Go ahead, Ms. Green, I think you said you had 2 questions. Ms. Green, you're back on mute.
Go ahead, Ms. Green.
I couldn't. I don't know if it was 2 questions or 1 question. You answered my question sufficiently. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Green. Any other comments or questions, Ms. Conway?
No, at this time, there is no more commenters.
Thank you for your.
Janice, is the board allowed to know if there's like legal questions brought up by parents to Dr. Stefanowitz? Like, do you tell us, you know, do you tell us everything when a parent comes to you with a complaint, for example, like what happened tonight? You know,
not always. I mean, it depends on the situation. You know, if we remedy the situation, more than likely not. If I feel like we were not able to remedy the situation, in which case then the appropriate next step is for the person to bring that to the Board of Education, then I of course would let the board know that would be coming. But, you know, I deal with hundreds, you know, dozens and potentially hundreds of those things in a year. So most of those things are able to be remedied, but if not, then then the board, I would give the board a heads up as to what might be coming its way.
All right, and Ms. Conway, assuming no one else has joined the queue?
Nobody else has joined the queue. There are no more commenters.
All right, so at this time, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Adjourned. Thank you, everyone. See you in 2 weeks.